heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Almighty God, who in thy wisdom and goodness hast appointed the office of rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of men and women, we beseech thee to behold with thy abundant favor us, thy servants, whom thou hast been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in these islands. Let thy blessing descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of these islands and those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge. And this we beg for Jesus Christ's sake. Amen. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Sumner. Members, good morning. The House is now in session. Good morning, members. A little humor to get us started this morning, eh? Okay. Members, the minutes from the 8th of November have been circulated. Are there any amendments required? There are none. The minutes will be printed, confirmed as printed. Thank you. Messengers from the governor? There are none. Announcements by the speaker? They've been informed by the following members of their absence today: MP Anthea Simmons-Wade, MP Scott Simmons, and MP Curtis Dixon have all indicated they'll be absent today. I've also received from the Office of the Auditor General the follow-up for the previous issued recommendations for the selected government entities. That report has been received. I've also received a report from the Salaries Review Board, the ministers and members of the legislature salary report that was done for August of this year. And also, I'd just like to take the opportunity to note that you may have noticed Mr. Lamb is not with us this morning. Mr. Lamb is actually one of those who are being honored today in the Long Service Awards that are taking place this morning. And I believe the Premier is here as well. So both are absent at the moment. Okay. Thank you. Papers and communications to the House. There are 3 such papers. The first is in the name of the Minister of National Security. Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning. Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly the National Violence Reduction Strategy.
Thank you. The next paper this morning is in the name of the Minister of Economy and Labor. Minister?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly the November 2023 Labor Force Survey Report.
Thank you, Minister. The next paper this morning is from the Junior Minister of Tourism, Culture, and Sport. Minister?
Yes, thank you. Thank you and welcome back, Mr. Speaker. I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly a report entitled the 2023 Bermuda Tourism Authority Year in Review.
Thank you. There are no petitions this morning. Statements by ministers and junior ministers. The first statement this morning is Premier's, but because he's not here yet from the Long Service Awards, we're going to do the Deputy Premier, and we'll come back to the Premier statement. Deputy Premier.
Just oblige me, Mr. Speaker, as I get the lecture.
Yes, it's right there. It's right here in front. It's right here. Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, honorable members and the listening public. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of the House and the people of Bermuda, I rise today to present an update on the integration of artificial intelligence and machine learning within the Land Title and Registration Department. This significant step forward reflects our commitment to modernizing land registry processes, enhancing efficiency, and building a more sustainable future for the department. Mr. Speaker, the purpose of this initiative is to harness the transformative potential of AI and ML to address the backlog in land title cases. This integration not only meets an immediate operational need, but also establishes a sustainable solution for the long-term management of Bermuda's land registry. Mr. Speaker, the Land Title and Registration Department was established in 2006 with the core responsibility for ensuring secure property ownership by maintaining official land title records. This enables individuals to prove ownership, prevents disputes, and promotes legal certainty in property transactions across the island. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, 2020, the department has faced an accumulating backlog of approximately 800 first registration cases. This increase was due to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, the surge in property sales, and an increase in voluntary registrations. These factors highlighted the need for an efficient and secure method of processing land title registrations. Mr. Speaker, our current resources have proven insufficient to address this increased volume of work. Although we have embarked on a project to scan deeds, this step alone is not enough to clear the backlog, as each document still requires a detailed review, verification, and entry processes, which is both time consuming and resource intensive. Mr. Speaker, this backlog impacts not only our department, but also our critical services. It delays the flow of land tax information to the Office of the Tax Commissioner, affects realtors and land valuation and the Land Valuation Department, mortgage banks, and has broad implications for our economy. Mr. Speaker, we have carefully considered several options to address this issue. Among these, we're offering overtime to existing staff, hiring additional staff at an estimated cost of $470,000, outsourcing to overseas vendors, using trainees, and engaging retired legal professionals. Each option had significant drawbacks, including high costs, risk of indemnity, and resource constraints. After a thorough review, the Ministry of Home Affairs determined that an AI-driven solution, like the model implemented by the UK Land Title Registry, is the most sustainable and cost-effective option. This approach promises to meet current needs while preparing the department for future demands. Mr. Speaker, we are proceeding with a partnership with Fluent Data, an AI vendor. After successful testing, the AI system demonstrated that it could extract required information from deeds in seconds, a task that would otherwise take human officers several hours. This technology will streamline document processing, reduce caseworker workload, and integrate seamlessly into the existing workflows. Mr. Speaker, the implementation process consists of several key steps. First, the backlog of 800 case files has already been scanned, organized, and returned to the department. Second, we have secured approval for a subscription-based Google AI service to process these digital files. We anticipate that the data extraction process will be completed within 12 weeks or sooner. Once the data has been extracted, it will be imported into Landfolio, our existing registry system. The LTR staff will verify data accuracy before integrating it into the official records. We also anticipate minimal ongoing maintenance through a consumption-based subscription model, ensuring updates are efficient and cost-effective. Mr. Speaker, the initial cost of AI implementation is expected to be approximately $50,000 with minimal ongoing expenses. This is far more economical solution than hiring additional personnel, providing a scalable model that addresses both immediate and future needs. The integration of AI and ML within the Land Title and Registration Department is a progressive move for Bermuda. By leveraging this technology, we ensure a high level of accuracy, security, and efficiency, while minimizing risk to government indemnity and improving service delivery. Mr. Speaker, the rollout of the LTR AI solution is to take place by December 20th, 2024, and completion date anticipated by the end of January 2025. Mr. Speaker, I must apologize to the general public for any inconvenience caused by these issues. We are confident that this initiative, supported by the department and working alongside the digital transformation team, will help to eliminate the backlog, facilitate ongoing operations, and position the department to handle future workload demands. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy will move on to the next statement, and which is by the Minister of Works. Minister of Works.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. No. Today I report to this House on the refocusing of the Bermuda Beach Resort project. But first, some history is in order so that there is a full understanding of the journey to this point. In 2007, the private sector Grand Atlantic Residence project was a 78-unit development to add additional freehold condos to the housing market. To assist the project's progression in 2009, the Bermuda Housing Corporation became involved to purchase the development once completed in 2012. However, Mr. Speaker, in 2013, the global crash of the housing market, including the decline in housing prices, decline in demand for housing, and a false narrative over the safety of the cliffs at Bermudiana Beach, to name a few, had an impact on unit sales. Only one was sold. The then OBA government elected to place the sale of condo units on the property on hold while a reassessment of the direction was considered. A request for information, RFI, on the property was issued in March 2013, with submissions due by May 2013, still under the OBA. After analysis, meetings, and a review of the submissions, the then government entered into a memorandum of understanding with the successful proponent to convert the property into a condo hotel. The MOU was initially for a period of 120 days and was then extended to March 2015. After the expiration of this MOU, the BHC negotiated with the bank to obtain a loan to refinance the original purchase of the Grand Atlantic condo units, still under the OBA. Mr. Speaker, following this, a second RFI was issued in May 2016, with submissions due by the end of June 2016. After analysis, meetings, and a review of the submissions, a proposal was selected and approved in October 2016 to convert the property into a residential condo boutique hotel with units available for sale. All this activity, the pivot from condos to hotel, occurred under the then OBA government. In July 2017, An election was held, which resulted in a change of government. The new PLP government continued negotiations with the selected co-developer, who was approved by the previous government to develop a condo hotel on the Grand Atlantic site. And up until 2019, the project progressed well, including the government announcing a brand arrangement with Hilton Hotels to increase the caliber and attractiveness of the property. Mr. Speaker, however, in early 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic started to take hold on the world, which made meeting sales targets virtually impossible. The pandemic resulted in those targets not being reached to meet debt financing conditions, and therefore an alternative financing facility was negotiated with the bank. After this, and again attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic, in 2021, the co-developer, which was selected in 2016, and the current government agreed to an amicable separation. The government and the BHC remain committed to the completion of this project, as at the time there was a need for additional hotel beds. Mr. Speaker, more difficulty came with the startling post-COVID inflation boom, which saw the cost of building materials soaring over 50% in some instances for basic supplies such as concrete and steel. 2 loans totaling $35 million were secured to continue construction. They remain in place. Despite these challenges, the project continued, but with pre-sales still not materializing and costs continuing to rise, the government decided to investigate the business model of the property. The Ministry of Public Works retained an expert who found that there was an inherent failure in the current business model. In general terms, the root cause of many of the issues associated with the project, including the lack of sales, stem from the direction set by the former development partner. The former developer's projections were overly simplistic, and the current team followed the same plan, but lacked the experience to navigate what would have already been an extremely challenging brownfield hotel development project. Mr. Speaker, after this assessment, the government engaged the international accounting firm Ernst & Young, EY, who have a unit that specializes in evaluating distressed hotel developments, to conduct an evaluation to determine if the Bermuda Beach Resort project was still viable in this current climate. The assessment looked at 4 options. 1, to continue the existing course, a boutique hotel with condominium sales. 2, upon completion of construction, sell units individually as condominiums. 3, upon completion of construction, run as a standard boutique hotel. Or 4, convert units into residential rental apartments and complete construction. Mr. Speaker, based on this analysis of market dynamics, supply and demand trends, product fit, and strategic alignment with key initiatives, the 2 most viable uses were determined to be options 3 and 4. In performing a financial assessment of the 2 most feasible options, the apartment scenario, option 4, provides the highest net present value as a result of strong demand, limited comparable supply, high rental rates, and significantly reduced operating risks as compared to the hotel option. While generating revenue to pay back outstanding debt remains a priority, the analysis indicated there was substantial resale value to be gained by holding the asset until cash flows stabilized and returns from the apartment scenario approached sufficient levels to meet the government's financial objective of retiring the $35 million debt in its entirety. I must note that the $35 million loans are not taxpayer funds, but rather a commercial loan entered into by the Bermudiana Development Company. Mr. Speaker, to accomplish option 4, there remains the requirement to complete the construction. Given the proposed product can fit with the current development profile, apartment rentals would help to minimize capital investment with minimum additional expenditures required beyond the completion budget, while also providing the opportunity to reduce investment further by limiting some of the proposed amenity space. Therefore, the ministry will provide the BHC with additional funding to the maximum amount of $5 million to complete the construction. This is compared to the approximately $9 million that would be needed for the hotel completion. Mr. Speaker, with this recommendation and taking into consideration the recent announcement for the commencement of the Fairmont Southampton redevelopment project, which would see 593 new hotel beds becoming available by the end of 2026, and reflecting on the priorities and principles of this government, a cabinet decision was made to pivot the Bermudiana Beach Resort to residential rental units. This decision results in a separation from the Hilton agreement at a cost of $399,600. This was a difficult decision as much effort was placed into converting the property into a hotel. But when presented with the data and the expert advice, the government chose to change course yet again, but one that we believe is in the best interest of the country and one that will prove beneficial to the economy in the long term. Now, all these changes come at a significant cost. Overall, $100 million plus will have been spent on this property over the 12 years, an incredible sum that reflected the change in direction with each pivot of the project to respond to the prevailing circumstances at each juncture. Clearly, no one would set out to spend this kind of money on such a project, but at each juncture, those making the decision believed it was the right one and funds would be recovered. An equally incredible set of circumstances have beset this project, and the aim now is to get as high a return as one can to mitigate the investment. Mr. Speaker, the challenge with housing impacts all segments of our community, which includes our international business sector as well. The need to house this sector puts pressure on the local housing market. The analysis indicates that this change in direction would provide a means to cater to this sector directly and thus indirectly free up the local housing market to be accessed by more Bermudians. The number one issue for IB now, based on their growth and expansion, is housing. The market demand is so great that in some cases, a studio is costing over $3,000 a month. Therefore, by December this year, this new proposed direction will see 94 studio, 1, 2, and 3-bedroom residential units of beachfront property added to fulfill a market demand for additional rental housing. The Bermudiana Apartments will be a multi-family community catering to young professionals and couples with amenities including beach access, indoor and outdoor fitness area, a pool area with the potential for a restaurant and spa in the future. Mr. Speaker, while no firm decisions have been made regarding rental pricing, we recognize the added amenities, location, convenience, and money already invested will necessitate competitive market rates that ease the demand and also allow us to generate revenue. There are people presently on the Bermuda Housing Corporation waiting list who can qualify for this housing, and that analysis is currently underway. Let me repeat a section of the recent throne speech on housing, Mr. Speaker, and I quote, "The government believes that every Bermudian should have access to adequate and affordable housing. That reality, coupled with the need to grow our working population to support our aging population, makes the expansion of Bermuda's housing inventory critical. As such, there will be a need for more housing to accommodate residents of Bermuda and a greater number of individuals living and working in Bermuda. Bermuda's demographic shifts are exacerbating the challenge of affordable housing in Bermuda, as there are not enough young Bermudians to replace the seniors who are retiring from the workforce. As these seniors retire, the additional labor needed to sustain Bermuda's economy often comes from guest workers. Given the fact that many of our seniors retire in Bermuda, the guest workers who may fill those jobs require accommodation. This reality is just one of the factors in Bermuda's housing challenges, end quote. Mr. Speaker, in this government's 2020 election platform on the category for improving the quality of life for all Bermudians, this administration pledged to continue increasing the stock of affordable housing throughout the country, expand rent geared to income programs, and construct residential developments in Bermuda's exclusive economic zone to increase the supply of quality, affordable residential accommodation and drive down rental costs. Mr. Speaker, this move does just that. As the old saying goes, a rising tide lifts all boats. And by adding to the housing market, regardless of the sector, we are helping to address the needs of all residents. If you remove a group of people looking for housing in the domestic market, you remove some of that demand and the price falls. Over the next several weeks, as this new direction evolves further, there will be additional public announcements. Mr. Speaker, everyone has an opinion on this decision, and they are entitled to that opinion. We were faced with a very difficult decision and chose the option that will secure some return on our investment and meet the payback of the outstanding loans while also relieving some of the pressure on the rental market. I remind of the work being done to increase the housing stock in other sectors, specifically the vacant and derelict housing rejuvenation being undertaken by the Housing Corporation, where every vacant and derelict unit owned by the corporation is under repair, with 71 of those units already back in service. The remaining 118 units are being brought back online regularly. Additionally, legislation to address the privately owned vacant and derelict properties will be forthcoming. Mr. Speaker, since 1999, successive PLP governments have added over 400 units to the housing inventory, while during the period 2012 to 2017, under the OBA, 13 units were added. So we have a track record of delivery that cannot be denied. The people of this country can rest assured that we are working diligently every day to increase the housing inventory. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Premier, would you like to go? I was going to give you a wrap up at the end, but if you'd like to go now, you rose early.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I may,
Yeah, we
as I did
acknowledge that
inform,
you
I
were-
do have to pop out for
Yeah,
that
we
meeting.
acknowledge that you were out earlier because of the long service awards, and I'm sure those who received it appreciated it. And we'll allow you to do your presentation now, your speech statement now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the purpose of this ministerial statement is to provide the House of Assembly with a report on policy discussions currently held with the banking sector regarding matters related to caps on the overlimit fees charged by deposit-taking institution, financial inclusion or access to bank accounts, and a general fee approval framework. Mr. Speaker, members will recall that the Banks and Deposits Company Act 1999, which I'll refer to as the Act, was amended in 2022 to provide the Minister of Finance with the power to make regulations for the purpose of regulating any commercial or business fee charge or penalty be paid by clients of an institution holding a deposit-taking license pursuant to the Banks and Deposits Company Amendment Act 2022. Mr. Speaker, subsequent to the amendment, the Ministry of Finance, working together with the authority, has developed a framework which provides for limits on fees which are charged in certain types of transactions should a person exceed an agreed credit limit, which occurs as a result of the relevant person's use of certain services, products, or facilities provided by a deposit-taking institution. Mr. Speaker, it is proposed to enact the Banks and Deposits Companies Over the Limit Fees Regulations 2024 shortly. Key features of these proposals are customer scope. It is proposed that changes should be applicable to all clients of a deposit-taking institution. This includes existing as well as new customers. Agreements. There'll be a requirement for the terms and conditions to be set out in an agreement. Where a customer declines to accept the terms and conditions of an agreement, they'll be required to confirm in writing that they will not have access to the product, service, or facility beyond the agreed limit. It is proposed that over-the-limit fees would not be charged more than once per billing cycle per product, service, or facility. And it is further proposed that an agreement be terminated in writing by the customer at any time prior to the termination date of such agreement, and the termination of such agreement shall not invalidate the over-the-limit transaction. Mr. Speaker, it is proposed that different provisions of the regulation will come into effect on different commencement dates. It is likely that matters related to changes to client agreements will take effect on a later date, while the limits on fees which may be charged will come into effect on the publication of the regulations. Members are advised that the draft regulation has been submitted to Bermuda Bankers Association for final comments. Following consultation with the banking sector, members will be aware that some institutions have already taken steps towards meeting this commitment, while others have advised that they may either withdraw the service or they'll consider the impact on their operations based upon legislation which has been finalized. With regard to financial inclusion, Mr. Speaker, the Financial Action Task Force Guidance on Anti-Money Laundering, Terrorist Financing Measures, and Financial Inclusion defines financial inclusion as involving the provision of access to an adequate range of safe, convenient, and affordable financial services to disadvantaged and other vulnerable groups, including low-income, rural, undocumented persons who have been underserved or excluded from the formal financial sector. Mr. Speaker, members be aware that the World Bank and the Financial Stability Board have documented the sustained deterioration of the provision of correspondent banking services by large international banking groups. Members would be aware that the costs of compliance to ensure retention of correspondent banking worldwide have significantly increased as companies react to developments in global regulation. This in turn affects a bank's ability and willingness to provide banking service to sectors considered particularly at risk by large international banks providing correspondent banking services. In response, countries are encouraged to increase their communication and outreach on supervisory practices to further contribute to a more differentiated risk decision making by banks. Following discussions with the Bermuda Monetary Authority and the Bermuda Bankers Association, the government intends to introduce a framework regarding matters related to basic bank accounts in accordance with the standards set down by the Financial Action Task Force and the National Anti-Money Laundering Committee. Although further discussion required with the banking sector, the ministry and the authority are close to finalizing a framework for discussion. Mr. Speaker, the framework will be guided by the general principle that persons who are currently underserved from banking perspective or persons who have been de-risked for reasons other than the services banks are legally permitted to offer should be provided with access to a bank account to facilitate their inclusion in the formal economy. This policy approach is keeping not only with the guidance set down by the Financial Action Task Force, but also with the World Bank definition of the term financial inclusion, which has been defined to mean that individuals and businesses have access to useful and affordable financial products, services that meet their needs, transactions, payments, savings, credit, and insurance delivered in a reasonable and sustainable way. Mr. Speaker, with regard to the announcement in the throne speech regarding the general fee approval framework, following the approval of the over-limit fees, the Ministry of Finance, working together with the Bermuda Monetary Authority, intend to advance a proposal to address how other banking fees are addressed. Details of this proposal will be released to the public in due course. Apart from the fee initiatives, work is also underway to determine how to enhance the banking sector ecosystem. Work with Bermuda Monetary Authority, different reforms are currently under review to address the lack of diversification in the banking sector and the impact that the current state is having on consumers. Immediate touchpoints for consumers range from the mortgage guarantee proposal to enhanced conduct rules, open banking, and digital identification. As per the government's normal custom and practice, the proposal will always share with the Financial Policy Council and the Bermuda's Bankers Association at various stages of the process to help the government better understand which combination of reforms would best meet the government's objectives and what the aggregate impact would be. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda's banks and deposit companies are required to meet on an ongoing basis minimum licensing criteria set out in the Banks and Deposits Company Act 1999. The act requires that institutions conduct their business in a prudent manner, including that they maintain capital and financial resources commensurate to the nature and scope of their operations. The capital requirements imposed seek to appropriately reflect their size and nature and scope of their business, and there is no intention to modify those requirements. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. Members, the next statement this morning is that of the Minister of Economy and Labor. Minister of Youth, Sport, and Development. Got thrown off track that time. I let the Premier back in.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to rise today to share with this honorable House the accomplishments of the momentous United Nations Joint Program, Building Back Equal, through innovative financing for gender equality and women's empowerment, also referred to as the Building Back Equal Joint Program. Mr. Speaker, the joint program was fully funded by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal Fund and successfully implemented due to the collaborative work of the Ministry of Youth, Social Development and Seniors and the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation with and technical leadership from the UN Women Multi-Country Office, Caribbean, and the United Nations Development Program Multi-Country Office, Jamaica. Mr. Speaker, the joint program initially launched in Bermuda on June 27, 2022, came to an end on October 18, 2024. The joint program aimed to diversify Bermuda's economy through the empowerment of specific groups of entrepreneurs, namely women, youth, and persons with disabilities, by tackling the unique challenges they face in accessing finance and business support, particularly as our economy was recovering from the severe impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Speaker, the Building Back Equal program is a first for Bermuda in entering a partnership with the United Nations and a first for United Nations through its Sustainable Development Goal Fund to help advance the Bermuda economy and its people. The joint program was designed to allow both the Bahamas and Bermuda to build forward while considering factors like climate change, natural disasters, and pandemics that have and will continue to exacerbate gender inequalities, social economic vulnerabilities, and risk reversing strong development gains that impact small island developing states. Mr. Speaker, 30 months have passed since the start of the program, which what we have achieved as a country during this time in partnership with the United Nations. First, let me say that the United Nations Joint SDG Fund invested approximately $1.8 million in Bermuda and the Bahamas to support the program. For Bermuda, this investment resulted in the following key achievements in promoting gender equality and economic empowerment. Gender responsive business practices. Training was provided to local financial institutions on understanding the needs of women and youth-led micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises and developing gender responsive financial instruments. Direct financial support. A total of 19 women entrepreneurs in Bermuda were provided with technical services and business inputs from specialist firms in Bermuda. Mary Prince Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership Conference, a 2-day masterclass, was held for 70 women entrepreneurs, and access was given to business sessions and activities designed to foster leadership and entrepreneurial skills. The Mary Prince Women Entrepreneur Leadership Public Lecture, hosted to empower and inspire small business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and members of the public with invaluable knowledge to elevate their business and leadership capabilities. Curriculum development. A comprehensive curriculum was created for business accelerator programs, ensuring adaptability to diverse audience and industries. An accelerator program, a dedicated 5-week program, was launched to support entrepreneurs led by women, youth, and persons with disabilities to provide them with the tools and resources to enhance their capacity and scale and attract an international investment. Women Empowerment Principles and the Gender Gap Analysis Tool for Business Growth. A series of virtual sessions were held offering guidance to private businesses, corporations, and government departments on how to advance gender equality and women empowerment in the workplace, marketplace, and community. Feasibility studies. Consultants were deployed to undertake first-time feasibility studies for Bermuda on financing mechanisms for gender equality and financial instruments for women-owned MSMEs. Consultation and engagement. Several focus group sessions were held with youth-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, successfully established women-owned businesses, and men-owned businesses. Consultation was held with organizations that empower women, youth, and persons with disabilities. There was engagement and site visits at entrepreneurs' businesses, business establishments. And policy influence, research and findings were gathered to inform national gender policies in Bermuda to further enhance a supportive environment for women and youth entrepreneurs. Mr. Speaker, in March this year, I shared with this honorable House that as part of the terms of the reference for the joint program, feasibility studies were to be undertaken on the business landscape of Bermuda's women, youth, and persons with disability entrepreneurs. These reports are currently being finalized by UN Women and will be made public once the reviews are completed. Mr. Speaker, the joint program culminated with the development, design, and implementation of an accelerator program led by the Founders Institute. The Founders Institute was established in 2009. It is the world's largest pre-seed startup accelerator whose mission is to activate and empower communities of entrepreneurs to launch meaningful technology startups worldwide. Our local entrepreneurs were directly connected to such a great resource organization. In September, the Founders Institute launched the Rise and Scale Bermuda Business Accelerator Intensive 5-week program. An invitation was sent to entrepreneurs and a press release encouraging entrepreneurs to participate in the program that was designed to equip participants with skills and business tools that would position them to successfully pitch their businesses both locally and overseas for innovative financing solutions. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the 19 dynamic entrepreneurs representing women, youth, and persons with disabilities who participated in the Rise and Scale Bermuda Business Accelerator. Joanne Adams with the T-Bar, Aderonke Badamiski Wilson, A.B. Wilson Consulting, Miriam, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Bedlaya, the Bermuda Center for Mindfulness, Razia Bellew, RD, Rakisha Burgess, Dutch Pops Bermuda, Courtney Clay Studio, Andorika Gilbert, Bermuda Dental Studio, Joyce Hayward, Rejoice Experiences, Antonia Holder, Didgeridoo Incorporated, Danye Hollis, Deluxe, Shanika Hollis, Butterfly Crochet and Crafts, Sherry Lynn Lilly, Numa Counseling and Consulting, Nakia Manders, Bermuda Dance Academy, Mariana Parks, Hannah Health, Zane Sinclair, Sinclair Seed Sewing, Kelly Smith, Cons, Trisha Warner, Law for Teens, Kristen White, Long Story Short, Shari Young, Ida's Essentials. At the Rise and Scale Bermuda Business Accelerator 2024 Pitch Forum held at the HSBC Bermuda Harborview Center on the evening of October 17th, 2024, attendees witnessed a series of compelling pitches that represented the future of Bermuda's entrepreneurial landscape. The entrepreneurs who participated in the pitch forum did an amazing job, and their growth over the 5 weeks was evident. Mr. Speaker, although the joint program has concluded, there is more work to be done to build upon the achievements and sustainability. It is within this context that the Ministry of Youth, Social Development and Seniors is still committed to advancing policy and legislation that stipulates persons with disabilities having access to support and services to be successful entrepreneurs, offering annual women empowerment principles training sessions to the public sector and businesses in the private sector, promoting the collection and reporting of entrepreneurship and finance data based on sex and age, disaggregated data, supporting the creation of a digital platform so all research products relevant to entrepreneurs are easily accessible, supporting entrepreneurs and creating and sustaining a network so women MSMEs can work collaboratively to enhance their businesses by tapping into the resources of other women MSMEs, increasing awareness around gender equality and women's empowerment by bringing topics such as unpaid care, domestic violence, and access to funding to the forefront, promoting the establishment of better professional networks, mentorships for youth entrepreneurs to access information, skills, and services to enhance their businesses. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I want to express my utmost gratitude to the technical teams at the UN Women Multi-Country Office, Caribbean, and the United Nations Development Program Multi-Country Office in Jamaica. They provided sterling support to Bermuda, ensuring the Building Back Equal program was a success. Mr. Speaker, under the leadership of Ms. Erica Smith, Executive Director, the team at the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation was highly instrumental in this entire UN Joint Program partnership. And without their participation, the joint program could not have progressed. I am profoundly grateful for the BEDC team and their commitment to work with the ministry and the UN teams to lend the requisite support to the very end. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I'm truly thankful to the headquarters team in the Ministry of Youth, Social Development, and Seniors. The team worked diligently with the UN representatives, planning and coordinating each step of the way as we journeyed through unfamiliar ground to bring the outcome of the United Nations Joint Program with Bermuda, Building Back Equal, through innovative financing for gender equality and women's empowerment to fruition. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Labor and Economy. Minister?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to introduce in the Honorable House today a bill entitled the Employment Amendment Act 2024, which proposes to increase the maximum severance allowance payment for long-serving employees from 26 weeks wages to 32 weeks wages. Mr. Speaker, the Employment Act 2000 sets the minimum requirements for employment relationships within Bermuda. However, there remains areas within the Act which require updating to strengthen labor policies that protect the rights of Bermudian employees while ensuring that persons can meet their basic needs and that assure accordance with international best practice. Mr. Speaker, severance allowance provides employees with a level of financial stability when they lose their employment. It assists with covering essential expenses such as rent, food, and healthcare, and gives employees the time and resources needed to seek new employment. This may result in better job opportunities as employees will not feel forced to take the first opportunity that arises out of financial necessity. Mr. Speaker, increasing the maximum severance allowance may help to avert the need for persons to rely on financial assistance. It may also reduce the stress and anxiety that undoubtedly follows the uncertainty that comes from being faced with sudden unemployment and loss of income. Mr. Speaker, the consultation on retaining the local workforce position paper 2024, which was tabled earlier this year by the Ministry of Economy and Labor, highlights the challenges of Bermuda's shrinking working population. It sought, amongst other initiatives, to put in place targeted measures to encourage and motivate working-age Bermudians to remain in Bermuda. One such proposal was to increase the maximum severance allowance payable from 26 weeks wages to 52 weeks wages. Mr. Speaker, the consensus of industry and our union partners to this proposal was that while any increase is necessary, the rising cost of doing business in Bermuda should be taken into consideration, along with the fact that the purpose of the act is to set a minimum standard. As such, the act should not include provisions that may be considered as progressing beyond a minimum standard. Mr. Speaker, consultation on the position paper began on the 15th of March 2024 and ended on the 15th of April 2024. And was open to the public via an online forum. Additional meetings were held with various stakeholder groups, and a total of 57 responses were received. As a result of the feedback received and discussions held with our industry and union partners regarding increased severance allowance, an increase from 26 weeks wages to 32 weeks wages was supported as a fair and equitable to both employees and employers. Mr. Speaker, the employees who will benefit from this bill are long-serving employees who have been in continuous employment with an employer for 13 years or more. This new law will be accompanied by other legislative amendments to remove the requirements to pay payroll tax on redundancy pay. This would help provide stability and fairness for employees during a time of transition. Mr. Speaker, it is envisioned that the impact of this bill will continue to build upon the values of the Ministry of Economy and Labor, which are to maintain a healthy, thriving, and equitable community. The bill will also create a more stable workforce within Bermuda by encouraging employers to engage in fair and responsible employment practices and aid in the retention of employees and the reduction of employee turnover. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, the next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Education. Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I believe I have two statements.
That's right. Sorry about that. Do your second statement.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to lay the November 2023 Labor Force Survey report and highlight for members of this honorable house the key findings of the survey. The Labor Force Survey serves as an economic tool measuring employment, unemployment, and the economically inactive population in the Bermudian economy. The current Labor Force Survey results show that Bermuda's labor force remains robust, with increases in employment and relatively low unemployment. The data indicates unemployment was measured at 2.8%, slightly below the 3.1% recorded in the same period of the previous year, and a vast improvement from the 7.9% recorded during the pandemic. Mr. Speaker, the unemployment rate for Bermudians stood at 3.3%, a decrease from the rate of unemployment reported a year ago. This is another positive indicator as economic and labor policies continue to support local employment. Youth unemployment, those 16 to 24, stood at 13.5%, as this demographic group globally continues to experience the highest unemployment rates amongst all demographic groups. Mr. Speaker, other relevant findings from the November 2023 survey include the following. The labor force stood at 36,619. The working population comprised 35,591 persons, of which 3,157 persons were underemployed. The working population distribution showed that 76.4% were Bermudian. The labor force participation rate was recorded at 82.4%, and the average hours worked per week in the main job was 41.2. Mr. Speaker, for members of the public, the November 2023 Labor Force Survey report is available online at gov.bn/employment statistics. Mr. Speaker, while the findings indicate progress in terms of a steady recovery and growth in the labor market, the government will continue to press on with effective policies and programs that support Bermudian workers. Currently, the Department of Workforce Development is suspending opportunities for Bermudians in skills trades and other essential careers. Registration has just closed for the Department's Skills Trades Apprenticeship Training Program. This initiative offers Bermudians an excellent pathway into high-demand trades like masonry, plumbing, and carpentry, providing participants with the certifications and hands-on experience needed to succeed in technical and vocational careers. This program is designed not only to address the demand for skilled tradesperson, but also to provide participants with a sustainable and rewarding career path. In collaboration with the stakeholders of industry in Bermuda, this program will offer a unique blend of classroom instruction and real-world on-the-job training. Through participation with industry experts, we will be equipping participants with the critical skills required for fields like construction, facility management, and maintenance. Mr. Speaker, this apprenticeship training program cannot be successful without our partners, our employers in plumbing, masonry, and carpentry. We are delighted to work with those who have already stepped forward to participate, and we invite more employers to support this program by taking on an apprentice. By being involved, employers can help cultivate a skilled workforce and gain motivated new team members ready to contribute immediately while aiding Bermuda's economic future. I encourage employers in the skills trades to attend an employer information session at the Department of Workforce Development on the 2nd of December. We look forward to seeing Bermudians embrace this chance to advance in the skills trades. Mr. Speaker, beyond this apprenticeship program, the Department of Workforce Development is advancing several other initiatives. At present, there are 20 individuals in the PACE Administrative Professionals course, 5 participants in the Small Appliance course who are currently in their second week attending Fred's Appliance Academy in Cleveland, Ohio, and 30 individuals who have recently completed their heavy truck driver's license who can now access better employment opportunities within the heavy trucking industry. The public can also visit dwd.bm to register for one of the many courses in interview prep, money management, and job search strategies, among others. Mr. Speaker, looking ahead, we encourage Bermudians to keep an eye out for registration for the Learn Through Experience Hospitality Training Program and a solar installation continuing education opportunity for electricians. There is also much important work happening to equip Bermudians with skills needed for successful careers. Mr. Speaker, together we can build a skillful, self-reliant Bermuda, ready to meet the demands of tomorrow's economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, listening audience. Mr. Speaker, today I rise to update this Honorable House and the listening public to the latest developments in the 3 to 2 tier plan, specifically the 2025-2027 phase of Bermuda government's education reform mandate. This initiative involves a comprehensive restructuring of the Bermuda public school system as part of our broader education reform agenda. Mr. Speaker, in response to the public's call for an alternative to the middle school model, we embarked on a journey to phase out middle schools and established a streamlined 2-tier system. Under this structure, parish schools will serve students from years 1 through 8, with 1 school in each parish and 2 in both Pembroke and St. George's. Senior schools will subsequently encompass years 8 through 13. In the parish schools, years 6, 7, and 8, known as junior pods, are designed to provide enhanced curriculum experiences that support a seamless progression into senior schools. Once students reach senior schools, they can participate in signature learning programs. These programs can comprise of up to 30% of a student's time alongside core curriculum subjects such as English, math, social studies, and science. Mr. Speaker, today I'm pleased to present the next phase of our education reform plan covering years 2025 to 2027 and to highlight key initiatives that support this ongoing transition. The next steps include opening 2 additional parish schools at the Harrington Sound and Elliott Primary School sites by adding year 7 students in 2025, phasing out middle schools, establishing a 3rd senior school at the Sands Secondary Middle School site, hosting signature learning programs in hospitality and tourism, as well as educational services, recruiting school transformation teams for the Somerset and St. George's Parish schools, and accelerating the development of a signature school for exceptionalities. Additionally, the previously announced closures of Prospect Primary School and Gilbert Institute at the end of the 2025 academic year are being mapped out, with discussions already underway to ensure a smooth transition for students, staff, and parents. Mr. Speaker, in September 2025, all primary schools will accept their usual P1 intake except for St. George's Prep and Somerset Primary, which will not enroll new P1 students. Rather than opting for immediate closures of these schools, we have chosen a phased approach to support a smoother, less disruptive transition to the parish primary school structure. Mr. Speaker, in September 2025, the parish schools in Smiths and Devonshire will open up at Harrington Son and Elliott School primary sites respectively, and they will start with Year 7 classes. Community engagement events have provided the public with opportunities to learn more about these plans. In October, school transformation teams from Harrington Son and Elliott Primary shared the proposed features at critical locations within the public parishes, allowing residents to engage, ask questions, and provide feedback. These teams, made up out of committed teachers, parents, and community members, are responsible for designing and prototyping the features of their parish schools to meet their community's specific needs. I'm grateful to these members for their dedication to this transformative process. Mr. Speaker, Sands Secondary Middle School, Whitney Institute Middle School, and Delwood Middle School will continue to admit M1 students for now. Starting in September 2025, students who have completed M2 and M3 by June 2025 will transition directly to senior schools, where they'll begin their signature learning journey. Sands Secondary Middle School is unique amongst our transitioning institutions, as it is Bermuda's only middle school set to become a senior school. The Education Reform Unit, Department of Education, and Sands leadership have worked diligently to prepare teachers for this shift, ensuring that they have professional development to implement the new curriculum and program changes effectively. Over the summer, all Sands teaching staff participated in specialized training in the Cambridge curriculum, preparing them to deliver a senior level education. This upskilling will continue through the 24-25 school year. Mr. Speaker, I'm also pleased to report that ongoing professional development for our primary school teachers. During the October midterm break, teachers from Purvis, Francis Patton, Elliott, and Harrington Son attended a session entitled Learner-Centered Curriculum Design and You, led by the ERU. This session strengthened teachers' understanding of a learning-centered design approach and high-impact instructional practices that will enhance student engagement in parish schools. These sessions bring together teachers from established and transitioning schools to foster collaboration, strengthen support networks, and promote consistent teaching standards across all parish schools. September 2025 marks the start of the 5-year senior school program, with Year 8 students from Warwick and Hamilton Parish Schools and M2 students from all middle schools beginning this new structure. At the same time, the final group of M3 students will enter senior school under the current 4-year model, marking them as the last intake for the 4-year program. Mr. Speaker, all Year 8, M2, and M3 students recently participated in the Signature Taster programs organized by the ERU. This program concluded with hands-on immersion events at Bermuda College, where students explored signature learning program strands offered at the Barclay Institute and Cedar Bridge Academy. Additionally, students attended open houses at each senior signature school, giving them an in-depth look at each school's unique offerings. Allow me to share some reflections from students on their open house experiences. A student from Purvis stated, and I quote, "I like that I was able to go to the different schools to see if we like them or not." Student from Whitney Institute, "It's been a great time here at the Barclay Institute, looking at the things that they have. It made me look and experience different things that you could do at Barclay that you cannot do elsewhere." Francis Patton student stated, "I found the open houses very informative. I like what was presented, and it made me excited to go to high school next year." And lastly, another Francis Patton student, "The open houses were fun. My chosen signature is STEM. It is at Cedar Bridge. I learned more about what I will do once I go there." These reflections highlight the excitement and inspiration that this program has sparked in our young people. Mr. Speaker, the government remains committed to inclusivity and equitable education for all students. In line with this commitment, we are accelerating the timeline for the establishment of the new Signature School for Exceptionalities to support students and families better and address the growing demand at Dame Marjorie Bean Hope Academy. Mr. Speaker, as we've learned over the last 4 years, a reform of this scale brings challenges and valuable lessons that continue to shape our decisions. We are moving away from, in some cases, decades-old entrenched practices. While I do not want anyone to automatically assume that this means what has been practiced during that time is wrong, Instead, we want to always work with our educators to improve what they already know, along with the introduction of some upgraded skill sets. Our goal of a more personalized education system for students from a one-size-fits-all system is not a task to be taken lightly. Recently, there's been much press about staffing shortages at certain signature schools in certain signature school subjects, staff discontent, communication issues, and other issues within our schools. As the minister, I take these complaints seriously and pledge to address them as they arise. With the significance of the reform we are undergoing, it is impossible to get everything 100% right. However, it is possible to have 100% effort in implementing the processes to address these issues. While we celebrate our achievements, we also recognize that the path is complex and full of obstacles. At times, we've needed to pivot and adjust our approach to align more closely with our community's demographics and cultural nuances. Recent experience have underscored the importance of thoughtfully adapting to ensure a meaningful and lasting change. Mr. Speaker, some of these problems have been developed over years due to custom and practice, and we are looking to implement long-term fixes that are not able to be put in place instantly in some cases. When we can address these issues immediately, we will do so as quickly as possible. We must maintain open communication channels with union partners, educators, parents, and students. Reform requires us to do the work of reforming while maintaining the continuity of the current system, and this is not a task that can be taken lightly. We will continue to work with our union partners, educators, parents, and students to identify problems, develop workable solutions, manage expectations, and most importantly, maintain a safe environment that is conducive to learning. In the coming weeks, the following are among various tweaks we are looking at as a result of the feedback we've been getting. We will be looking at how we communicate with parents and educators and explore new ways to ensure messages are effectively communicated. Reassess how the government's committee meetings are conducted. Continue to look at educator recruitment processes and how that can be improved. Perform an audit of all current S3 signature school students to identify any gaps in earned credits relating to signature programs. Mr. Speaker, as we progress through these reforms, the Ministry of Education is dedicated to maintaining open and transparent communication with all stakeholders. As stated, we will provide regular updates through revised means, in addition to the multiple current channels that include social media, newsletters, radio, and community engagements to ensure that families, educators, students, and the community members remain informed. The government website also includes FAQs on the 3 to 2-tier plan to address common concerns and clarify some changes ahead. By keeping communication channels accessible and consistent, we aim to foster trust and collaboration as we work together to enhance the educational landscape for Bermuda's children. Mr. Speaker, since our initial discussion of the 3 to 2-tier plan in April 2023, we've remained committed to a phased, deliberate approach, ensuring that each stage of reform is fully considered and attainable. Today's update covers the next 2 years as we continue on a path of steady progress, instilling confidence in families and communities about the readiness of our schools and steps taken to ensure smooth transitions. Our guiding philosophy has been and will remain a Bermuda-led process by Bermudians for Bermudians. Yet we recognize that education is inherently global, and our children's success depends on their preparedness for an interconnected world. While this reform effort is grounded in Bermuda's unique strengths and cultural values, we also draw on insights from global experts to enrich our approach. This international perspective helps us build a culturally responsive education system that prepares our students to think critically, act responsibly, and engage meaningfully on a global stage. Mr. Speaker, we invite everyone interested in Bermuda's educational future to step forward and join us, whether through school transformation teams or as active voices in our communities. There is room for all that wish to contribute. This is a shared responsibility, and we firmly believe that education is the business of every Bermudian. As we move forward, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our teachers, parents, student, and community members for their patience, trust, and dedication. Mr. Speaker, our commitment is clear. Listen actively, engage deeply with our community, and adapt as needed. Together, we will continue to overcome challenges, celebrate our achievements, and ensure every child of Bermuda receives a quality education. Reforming our education system for our children is not just a goal, it is our collective duty. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Members, I just have a question. The access to SharePoint is all sorted out for everyone? Back up? Okay. There's going to be a little indulgence going to ask. There are two others that should have been that we're in on, and we're trying to not resolve the first problem. And we're going to see if we can hit the other two on there. Okay. If they come, we'll do them. If they don't, we'll pass by. Okay. Yeah, ministerial statements. There's two more. Give Mr. Lamb a couple of sacks to see if we can get it sorted. If they come up, we'll do them. If not, ministers, the two ministers know who they are. If they don't reach, if we can't resolve it right now, we're going to move on. Okay? Take a crack at it. Okay. As Mr. Lamb is being honored today for his long service, we lost the ability of having his expertise serve with us this morning. So even though we are recognizing his good service, we caught the short end of it this morning. But he's back in seat now, so he'll get us resolved. One is up, the second is being uploaded. I'm going to ask the minister, who's the first one in the system right now, and seeking the indulgence. The other statement is from Minister Weeks in reference to the matters being tabled today, and he just wanted to give a statement in advance of it being tabled and a reason for it being tabled. And the second is Minister Caesar, same thing. She has a matter being tabled, and a statement should have accompanied both of those. The technical difficulties being resolved. We're going to ask Minister Weeks to go ahead and present his, and then Minister Caesar, if it gets on, Minister Caesar. If it doesn't, okay. Thank you for your indulgence, members.
Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for your indulgence, members. Mr. Speaker, I stand before you today to introduce into the legislature the National Violence Reduction Strategy. This strategy is the result of months of collaboration, reflection, and dialogue. Tabling the strategy today marks a significant step forward in this government's unwavering commitment to addressing the pressing issue of violence in our community. Mr. Speaker, as a nation, we face a challenge that has deep and wide-reaching consequences. Violence in all its forms, be it youth violence, gang-related activity, interpersonal conflicts, psychological abuse, or antisocial behavior, affects every part of our society. It undermines the very fabric of our island, placing at risk the safety, security, and well-being of our families and the future of our country. But Bermuda is resilient. Together we can heal, restore peace, and rebuild our island on the principles of respect, empathy, and unity. Mr. Speaker, the National Violence Reduction Strategy is not just another policy document. It is a testament to our collective will to put an end to violence in all its forms. It is the result of a two-day consultative workshop where key stakeholders from across the public and private sectors, faith-based organizations, community groups, sports clubs, and government agencies came together to identify solutions and forge a path forward. We are deeply grateful for their contributions and the robust dialogue that has shaped this plan. A special thanks must also go to the Ministry of National Security's Gang Violence Reduction Team, whose tireless efforts have been instrumental in crafting this strategy. Mr. Speaker, this strategy is a call to action. It calls on all of us, government, community leaders, faith groups, families, individuals, and young people, to unite in our collective efforts to reduce violence and heal our island. Through collective efforts, we will realize the strategy's vision of a safe, empowered community where violence is reduced to its minimum. Through collaboration and innovation, we aim for trust, opportunity, and justice for all. Together, we envision a future where understanding and connection replace violence, fostering a brighter, safer tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, the National Violence Reduction Strategy outlines a comprehensive, multifaceted approach to prevention, intervention, and rehabilitation. By recognizing the root causes of violence, whether they be economic hardship, lack of opportunity, social alienation, or generational trauma, we aim to create lasting change. It emphasizes the need to empower our youth to protect the most vulnerable among us and to ensure that those who commit acts of violence are held accountable, while also being given pathways to rehabilitation and reintegration into society. This strategy is about hope, healing, and the restoration of our communities. Mr. Speaker, a key component of this strategy is to focus on our youth, our future. We know that if we can change the mindset of our young people and offer them alternatives to violence, we can break the cycle and prevent future generations from facing the same challenges. We are committed to expanding programs that engage young people, promoting inclusion, mentorship, and positive role models. By doing so, we can create a generation that chooses peace, understanding, and respect. Additionally, as part of our commitment to youth empowerment, I am proud to highlight the reinstitution of the Bermuda Youth Counseling Services under the Department for National Drug Control. Originally launched in 2002, this service will now offer targeted counseling and case management for young people aged 10 to 18 who are at risk of substance misuse and violence. This program will help guide our youth through difficult challenges and provide them with the tools they need to build brighter, more hopeful futures. Mr. Speaker, the National Violence Reduction Strategy also includes important community-driven initiatives. We are expanding the Gang Violence Reduction Team's outreach program, which helps young people involved in or at risk of gang activity. This program will offer educational and vocational support, including financial assistance for GED programs, access to Bermuda College for those who meet the entry requirements, and expanded opportunities for apprenticeships, certifications, and overseas training. Mr. Speaker, the government also recognizes the profound emotional and psychological toll that violence takes on individuals and families. That is why we are expanding the community counseling program, which offers grief and trauma support to those impacted by violence. Whether it's a victim of a violent crime or a family affected by the loss of a loved one, this program provides a crucial service to help people heal. This strategy is a living document, one that will evolve as we continue to engage with our communities and assess the impact of our efforts. We are not just setting out a plan, we are building a movement, a shared vision for a safer Bermuda. The National Violence Reduction Strategy underscores our belief that through collaboration, education, and accountability, we can reduce violence, heal broken relationships, and restore peace to our island. Mr. Speaker, we stand at a critical moment in our history, and the decisions we make today will shape the future we leave for our children and our grandchildren. The National Violence Reduction Strategy is our commitment to a brighter, safer Bermuda where peace, respect, and understanding replace fear, division, and violence. I ask for the support of this honorable House and the people of Bermuda as we embark on this journey together. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I am urging all honorable members and the people who call Bermuda home to familiarize themselves with the 8 strategic goals for the strategy and determine how they can join us in our mission to implement strategies that will reduce violence in Bermuda. Together, we can create the Bermuda we know is possible, a Bermuda that is united, resilient, and dedicated to healing. By working together, we will reduce violence and build a future filled with hope and opportunity for all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. And members, again, asking your indulgence. We do have the second statement up on the SharePoint for you now. Minister Caesar.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for your indulgence to my colleagues. Mr. Speaker, good morning. Today, I am pleased to table for the consideration of this Honorable House the public access to information PATI rights to records held by public authorities. PATI forms a part of a robust information rights framework that creates transparency and accountability. Mr. Speaker, this bill includes the introduction of reasonable charges, which places limits on the time spent by public authorities in responding to requests, and provides for payment for requests where processing by the public authority exceeds this. Mr. Speaker, this bill will provide necessary updates between the Act and the regulations, providing for greater clarity and alignment for the enhanced cohesion and implementation of processes, along with updates to provisions of functions to the information officers and some provisions of functions and procedures regarding the information commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members, that brings us to a close of the statements this morning. We'll now move on. Reports of committees. There are none. Question period. There are no written questions this morning, so the questions will come from statements that were given this morning. And ministers, we do have members who wish to put statements to you today. Just acknowledge the Premier does have a question down for him, but the Premier has been called to an emergency matter that is being dealt with over the phone. So once he's finished, he'll be back and we'll come back to his question. But we'll move on. So the first statement right now is from the Deputy Premier. Deputy Premier, you have a question from MP Campbell. MP.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know, the minister mentioned that since 2020, there's been an accumulating backlog of about 800 registration cases. Would the minister be able to advise whether these include purchases by non-Bermudians?
Minister?
Yes.
Supplementary?
Yes, I have a supplementary.
It's a supplementary.
Given that a maximum of 2,500 acres is allowed to be owned by non-Bermudians, does the minister have any concerns that 2,500 acres may have been exceeded during this period of backlog?
Minister?
Not at this time. But if I do get information that rises concern, I'll certainly report it to this House.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, final supplementary. If it is discovered once they're fully back up to date that the 2,500 acres has been exceeded, what is the course of action that the ministry will take?
Minister?
At this point, if, as I said in my previous statement, if that concern arises, I would report it to this House. There has been a process in the past where adjustments have been made to accommodate that, but certainly it's no intention that we would go beyond that number. And at this point, just one second, I may have a slight enhancement to that answer. The control of this matter is by the cabinet, and the Just 1 second, if you oblige me, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, in answer to the honorable member's question, that matter is actually controlled under other legislation, not under, and is not the responsibility of our particular department. It will come under whoever controls alien registrations. So that would be a matter for another ministry. I do believe it's either the Cabinet Office or possibly the Department of Immigration that handles those matters.
Thank you. There's your two subs. You have a second question.
I will hold on to any questions in this area for now. Thank
Okay.
you.
No further questions from anyone? Thank you. Minister Weeks, the opposition whip would like to put a question to you. Sorry, not Minister Weeks, Minister Works, sorry. Minister Works.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning and welcome back. On page 2, the minister mentions that the Ministry of Public Works retained an expert who found that there was an inherent failure in the current business model. Like to know when was this expert taken on?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, he wasn't taken on. The reason why I have not mentioned his name and will not mention his name is because he done it as a favor to the government of Bermuda. He's an expert in a local expert in running a hotel of this type, and so he looked at the documentation that supported this exercise and gave us an opinion. Based on that opinion, as I indicated in my statement, we then went and hired a professional, EY, to actually do an assessment of the project.
Supplementary?
Yes, supplementary. Would the minister consider that to be unusual that we would take on, as stated here, an expert to give free advice on where policy goes for the people of Bermuda,
Members?
on where policy goes for the people of Bermuda, to then lead them to an assessment by EY? It's a bit irregular that we would allow someone without to counsel government on decisions to be made, and we don't make it public other than just to say an expert.
Minister?
Was there a question in that?
I asked the
It
question.
sounded like an opinion to
I
me.
said unusual. Isn't that unusual?
Mr.
Answer's either
Speaker,
yes or no, I guess.
Mr. Speaker, no, it's not unusual.
Up to you. It's
Um,
not unusual.
It's not unusual. You have experts that sit on government boards. You have people who have expertise in particular areas who you seek advice from and guidance. And based on that advice, you then go to the organized route of hiring somebody to do a deeper dive than what they did from reviewing the documents.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker?
Supplementary, yes.
Yes, Minister, would you agree that the expert that you relied on for free was similar to the expert advice the OBA received for the America's Cup?
That will call for the minister to have factual information of what was done. Does the minister have factual information? The minister indicated he doesn't. Any further question? Would you like second question? Yes.
Yeah, no, supplemental.
Second sub, yes.
Yes. Was it the advice of this expert to hire Ernst & Young?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, no, it wasn't. What the government did in deciding on EY is to look at who of the alphabet group of consultants that do this type of work had expertise in this area, looking at distressed hotel assets. In the case of EY, they have a whole division that's based in the Bahamas that does this work specifically. So from the Bahamas, they provided input to the local EY office to be able to assess the project and give an opinion.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary.
Minister, was this expert that you used, was the same expert that former minister, Mr. Kenner, used on the same project?
Minister.
I have no clue what you're talking about.
I never got an expert.
Any further questions?
Yes, yes.
Second
Yes,
question.
Mr. Speaker. Wow. The minister also on page 2 mentioned that after this assessment, the government engaged an international accounting firm, Ernst & Young. When did that take place in relation to when the expert they retained was taken on? So first part of that is, when was this Ernst & Young taken on?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't have the exact dates of either one of these activities with me, but the advice from the professional was received 1 week, and I think the next week or two we decided to hire EY.
Supplementary.
Supplementary. Yes. Does the minister have? He gave a statement that on the eve of opening up this hotel, Thursday, and November 1st was the following day or two, that the hotel was to open. So it did seem a bit abrupt. So my question is, the minister must have some idea of when that decision was made. So to say that you don't know when Ernst & Young was taken on. So when was the final report received from EY?
Minister.
Sounds like it.
I think the question is, when was the final report received?
Yes.
Okay, that's the question. I know that. Minister. He may have it or may not. We'll see.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know what the shadow minister is referring to when he said a day before the hotel was due to be open. The work and the construction work has not yet been completed. That is due to be completed in December. But the date of the EY report to the government of Bermuda is the 20th of September, 2024. And so I would suspect, actually, let me not suspect. Let me see if it gives a date in here. So I think EY took 6 weeks to do the report. So you take 6 weeks from the 20th of September. That puts you sometime in August. I would suspect that we got advice from the expert in the beginning of August. There wasn't a great deal of time between the recommendation that he made and then the decision to hire a professional accounting firm.
Any more questions? No further questions? Thank you, members. Thank you, Minister. The next statement that has questions this morning, and before I call on that, I just act to acknowledge in the gallery former Speaker Horton. Welcome to the gallery, sir. Good. All right. And the next statement has questions is a statement from the Minister of Youth, Sport, and Social Development. MP Jackson, would you like to put your question?
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. I'd first just like to congratulate the minister and her ministry, and certainly Erika Smith, BEDC, who's supported this UN program over the last couple of years. It appears that it has been highly successful. My question is, I'd like to ask the minister whether Bermuda had an opportunity, Bermuda entrepreneurs in the program had an opportunity to actually have any collaboration or training sessions with the Bahamas, who was the sort of sister country through this UN program. Was there any actual integration where there was an exchange of ideas and learning and that sort of thing as the women entrepreneurs were going through the program?
Minister?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleague, for that question. Yes, there was an opportunity for that to occur. We had the opportunity for Bermudians to be represented in a multi-country office entrepreneurship training that was actually held in Jamaica, and we had representation of Bermudians go to that conference, where Bahamas was also represented as well, where entrepreneurs had the opportunity to train and to share ideas. Actually, some of the feedback after we did our postmortem of the Building Back Eco project was that we wanted to have more opportunity for Bermuda and Bahamas to collaborate. So that is definitely the feedback that we have gotten back through our postmortem as well. But they did have the opportunity, probably not to the extent that we would have liked to, but they did have the opportunity in the initial stages.
Supplementary?
I have a second question.
Second question.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to ask the minister whether this program specifically or anything similar, but has this program been a one-off, or will we be able to reapply or have an opportunity to participate in any future similar programs for our next generation of entrepreneurs?
Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to remind our listening audience that this was the first time ever that Bermuda has had the opportunity to participate in the Sustainable Development Goals through UN Women and the United Nations Development Program. We're so very grateful for that opportunity, and they have told us that we now have a foot in the door, basically, to be able to qualify and apply for further programs through UNDP. Bermuda is now part of their family, and they do recognize us as being beneficial to providing support, as well as Bermuda setting gold standards actually across other Caribbean islands of the work that we do here in Bermuda, and how they even want us to come and share some of the things that we do in Bermuda. So yes, we're looking forward to further working with UN Women and UNDP.
Supplementary or new question?
I have sort of one final question. One was, and the minister alluded to, then is there an opportunity then that those that have gone through the program are qualified to then be able to train and become a trainer for whether they're next generation in Bermuda or in other countries?
Minister?
Thank you for that question. Again, the door has been opened with the relationship with UNDP and UN Women, and the UNDP and UN Women have met some great persons here in Bermuda, as well as entrepreneurships. And so that relationship has been grounded, and they will be looking out for us in Bermuda to have opportunities with training and also cross-country initiatives as well.
Thank you.
No further questions?
No further questions.
Thank you. Okay. The next statement that has questions this morning is the statement by the Minister of Education. Minister, MP Campbell would like to put a question to you. MP?
Century, got a century on my bet today, sir. Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask the minister, for those students who may be at Cedar Bridge and Berkeley currently who wish to pursue the hospitality and tourism signatures, have provisions been made for them to be doing those specific courses for the hospitality and tourism signature right now in their first, second, or whatever year they might be in?
Minister? Yes.
Mr. Speaker, at Cedar Bridge Academy, they have the culinary arts program. It's the only program that will transition over into the hospitality.
Supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. So for students who are already at Cedar Bridge, and S2, will they, or even S1, will they be able to have some accelerated program in order to finish the necessary requirements under the signature once the SANS signature school has been open?
Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the question. Mr. Speaker, the question demonstrates a fundamental issue that we find ourselves dealing with, and that is the lack of understanding of how signature programs do work among some people within our community. The signature program, as I said in the statement, occupies about 30%. And it's the process of signatures is to give our students a focused exposure to industry. So when they do finish schools, they have an exposure to that. However, they still earn credits for those classes that they do take. And so it's always been explained that it is possible for a student to transfer to another signature school if they do wish. However, it really does depend on how far along in the particular signature they're doing. So if once you get past year 2, it'll be very difficult to transfer to another school and do the signature programs there and get the full scope of it. However, that's not something that we would deny anyone to do, but we will explain to them exactly what would happen. They would still gain the necessary credits to graduate, but they may not get the full exposure of being at the program for the full, as it stands now, 4 years, but as it stands in come September 2025, the 5 years. There is discussions of once all of the schools are up and running, how we can provide access to schools while not having to transfer, but that is something that is being looked at and we look to implement at some point in the future.
Supplementary or new question?
No more questions.
Thank you. Members, actually there's one left. Premier? The last question this morning is for the Premier statement, and that was from MP De Silva. MP De Silva, would you like to put your question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Oh, sorry, Premier. Thinking that the color of someone's hair shouldn't be the reason why Mr. and Mrs. Smith can't get a bank account in the country, will you be looking at creating a financial ombudsman position to assist the people of Bermuda that are being discriminated against by the banks? It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honorable member for his question, and I know the honorable member is passionate about fair banking access in the country. What I will say is, Mr. Speaker, as part of the broader measures of which the Ministry of Finance is taking on, there is a broader conduct measure of which the honorable member is alluding to. Whether or not that is in the form of a financial ombudsman, or whether or not that's in the form of expanding those types of I guess I would say matters that would typically be handled by a financial ombudsman to be handled by another particular agency, etc. Those are things of which we are going to continue to examine and work with the Ministry of Economy and Labor, who has responsibility for consumer protection around there. And so, Mr. Speaker, I recognize the concern that has been raised by the honorable member. It is something that needs certainly to be advanced, and we're looking to do it. I do not believe that it will happen in this particular legislative year, but it is something that is insofar as the planning to make sure we get it into place. The BMA has already done some matters related to conduct and codes of practice, but on the matters related to enforcement, on the matters related to how to handle complaints and the actual powers to address these matters under conduct, we just need to make sure we finalize which particular body may handle that, whether it's existing or a financial ombudsman, and then we'll take it forward.
Supplementary question?
A second question, Mr.
Second
Speaker.
question?
Premier, will you be bringing legislation to create, and I quote, an unfair contract and terms act similar, not similar, very similar, maybe exactly the way it's laid out in the UK and been in existence since 1977?
Premier?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will certainly take that matter under advisement, and I can certainly share it with the Minister of Economy and Labor, who has responsibility for consumer affairs. Matters related to unfair contracts and practices will be largely governed under existing consumer affairs laws and provisions, and to see if there's any particular amendments or changes to make sure. But from a fundamental basis, the government does not wish to be in a space where there are unfair contracts and terms, and we believe that citizens should have recourse because we are a government that believes in fairness.
Thank you. Supplementary or further question? MT Jackson.
Yes, I have a supplementary. When it comes to unfair contracts and such with the banks, I'm curious, would this also include people who are not able to open up a bank account from the very get-go? So these may be folks that just maybe it's around a permanent address or whatever the situation might be that doesn't even qualify them to get in to a contract.
Great question.
Premier?
Well, I'm not entirely certain where the honorable member is going, but let me try to reread the statement of which I had given before, where it says that financial inclusion is involved with the provision of access to an adequate range of safe, convenient, affordable service to disadvantaged and other vulnerable groups, including low income, rural, or undocumented persons who have been underserved or excluded from the formal financial sector. So in the case which I think the honorable member was alluding to, in regards to persons who may not have a permanent address or fixed abode and their inability to access financial services, that is precisely the measures of which we are seeking to correct, because it's important that persons have access to financial inclusion in the economy. And every single person should have access to basic banking. It is true, we've seen in other jurisdictions where the global settings bodies have realized that the rules of which they put in place have led to a significant amount of persons being removed from the financial system, which cannot solve the goals of the reduction of financial crime. And so we're going to make sure that these things are balanced properly and correctly so that we can get away from this space where people do not have access to banking services, which is unacceptable in this time.
Thank you, members. That brings us to the end of the question period. And before we move on, let me just see where we are. The next item on the order paper will be the congratulatory and obituary speeches. And Premier, you're on your feet. Premier, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There'll be a lot today. First, Mr. Speaker, I would certainly like to associate all honorable members, as for the last 2 days we've been celebrating the life of the late Senator Leslie Robinson, who we laid to rest yesterday. And on certainly behalf of the government and all members who I will associate, but I'm sure individual members may have their own comments. We were certainly shocked by her passing. We know about her leadership in the international business sector and also in her church. And we will greatly miss her inside of the Progressive Labor Party. And I'll ask that the Honorable House to send a letter of condolence to her family. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to extend my deepest condolences to the families of constituents of mine, Mr. Ethan Aruda, who tragically lost his life due to violence a couple of weeks ago. And I will certainly associate all members, but I do know particularly that the Deputy Premier, who knows the Aruda family, and the Minister of National Security went with me to visit the family shortly after Ethan's tragic passing. We certainly did visit the family to express our condolences directly. It was a very heartfelt and tear-filled send-off service at the Catholic Church last weekend. But certainly, again, I would like to ask the House send a letter to his parents, Alvaro, Monica, and his brother Logan, and without question, the wider Mount St. Agnes community and the Bermuda community on this tragic loss. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to send condolences. I'm not going to associate you, but I know that you may speak on this one later. Certainly to the family of the late Quentin Bean, a beloved taxi operator, true ambassador of Bermuda's hospitality, known as QB. Mr. Bean shared his deep love and knowledge of Bermuda with countless visitors, setting a high standard. But of course, he was a dedicated member of the Warwick Parish Council, Salvation Army Band, and a stalwart of the Bermuda Progressive Labor Party. And I would certainly ask that this House send a letter to his family, and certainly would like to associate members with that, but they will certainly associate themselves if they do wish. I would, Mr. Speaker, please like to ask the Honorable House also to send condolences to the family of one of my late constituents, Mr. Gloria Simmons of Mount Hill, who passed away in her 100th year. She was married to her husband, Kenneth Simmons, for 73 years and had the occasion of visiting them on their 70th wedding anniversary. I know I was in this House and gave congratulations for that as well, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, further, I'd like to ask that condolences be sent to the family of the late Elliot Williams, who was laid to rest early this month. Certainly, I would like to condolences with his wife, Dorothy, who was a principal to many persons, and certainly Mr. Curtis Williams and also Suzanne Williams, Charles, who are his children. Finally, Mr. Speaker, if I may, I would like to ask and associate honorable members with heartfelt condolences to the family of the late Peter Green. Without question, we put out a statement from the government. Mr. Green's unwavering commitment to Bermuda was certainly evident through his investments in our tourism industry. But the biggest thing is, Mr. Speaker, is that there are many Bermudians in this country who would not have had the opportunity to gain higher education was it not for the scholarships that were awarded by the Green family. It has touched many families personally. It has touched my family particularly, as I know the members of my family have, and I want to make sure that we recognize that particular contribution as he has passed. And so on behalf of the government and certainly the Progressive Labor Party, I was certainly associated with the opposition and members of the whole House, we extend sympathies to his family, especially his sons Alexander and Andrew. May he rest in peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. When we miss this occasion in weeks past, we should double the time. Anyway, I'd like to be associated with the condolences to Senator Leslie Robinson. It was an absolute joy to have her as the junior minister for Public Works and to work with her. Quentin Bean is a first cousin of mine, and so I extend condolences to his family on his passing. He was a member of my branch and regularly gave me advice and instruction sometimes. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to ask that congratulations be sent to the Portuguese community of Bermuda on the occasion of their 175th anniversary of their immigration to Bermuda. I attended the celebration at Spanish Point, where the president of the Azores was present in Bermuda, and it's a delight to see the work that they're doing at that location, which is now their headquarters. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to extend congratulations to Restoration Ministries, who celebrated their 20th anniversary. You may know, Mr. Speaker, they are presently housed at TN Tatum as one of the anchor tenants. I attended their gala event, and one of the things that has impressed me about their outreach and their work in this community is not just how they concentrate and focus on young people, but about 2 years ago, they entered into a partnership with Grace Point Church, which is a church that meets on Sundays. So their hall is used on Saturdays by themselves and Sundays by another organization. And I told them in my remarks that they set the standard for what we should be doing in this country, sharing, as opposed to having things that are just for our own use. So they are one of a number of entities housed at Tatum that do community work. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I attended last night's Mosaic event at Bermuda College, which was put on by the Jamaican Association of Bermuda. And it was a movie and a presentation in honor of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And it was presented by a Jamaican lecturer, Stephen Bruce Goldie, who presented on, he is probably the world expert on Marcus Garvey.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Minister.
and hopefully the movie will be a series because they only were able to cover a small portion of his life. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, members. I see it's been a lot of attempts to get the speaker's attention. I think I'm going to let the young lady of you gentlemen, if you don't mind, yield it to Minister Furbett. Minister Furbett, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will take the young characteristic.
Go ahead, that'll get your attention. How's that?
Mr. Speaker, I do want to also associate myself with the condolences to the family and spiritual daughter Kalichi Jones of Senator Leslie Robinson. Is wanting to offer my condolences to that family. Also, Mr. Speaker, would like to send condolences to my constituent of St. George's South, Ms. Dora Lucille Hollis, who departed us in her 100th year. Mr. Speaker, we have people living longer and longer, and wanting to send condolences to her children and the whole community in Harlem Heights, and especially her granddaughter Sasha Andrews, and also her daughter, who also took really, really good care of her in her home. Condolences to that family, and also wanting to send condolences to the family of 19-year-old Dimitri Edwards. Associate the premier with those comments, and Minister Diallo Rabane, who tragically lost his life on our roads, Mr. Speaker. Also, Dimitri Edwards is the son of Tanisha and Damon Edwards, and also the very best friend of my son. And so, I know it's been a very difficult time for many of those families who are out there grieving, but wanting to definitely offer our love and support to those families who are experiencing such grief. Mr. Speaker, I want to take the opportunity to congratulate all of our public servants, where today we recognize them for the long service awards, some getting awards for 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 years, and I think 40 and 45 years in the public sector. And that's a very long time serving the community in that aspect, and Bermuda, or the civil service, being one of the largest, I believe it's the largest employer of our people in Bermuda. And we know that times can get really tough, particularly with such a progressive government that we have. That people are working over and beyond the call of duty, and we want to thank them and recognize them for the work that they do on behalf of the government. I also want to take this time to congratulate, of course, Hamilton Parish Hot Peppers for winning the Dudley Eve Trophy in soccer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Football.
MP Pearman, you have your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to be associated with the remarks in relation to the passing of Senator Robinson, and I'm sure that all my colleagues on this side of the aisle would like to be associated as well. It was a spectacular send-off yesterday for those who were present. I cannot recall, Mr. Speaker, if we did have a moment of silence formally for her last week. If we didn't, no doubt that could be featured in your remarks. But
Not in this house. She didn't sit in this house.
well,
Her
I leave it to you.
her-
It's
her
in your hands,
chambers-
Mr. Speaker.
Her chambers would do it, but I believe there was a moment of silence that was scheduled that they did.
Indeed, so.
The other chamber will take care of it.
I'm in your hands, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to be associated with the remarks for the Aruda family for their tragic loss that touched so many people on this island, and hopefully is not the way this island is going. Again, we would like to be associated with the Premier's remarks about the passing of Peter Green. He was a remarkable husband, father, businessman, philanthropist, art expert, raconteur, hotelier, and a lover of all things Bermuda. On a personal level, he was immensely kind, considerate, and very, very funny. And so to his sons, Alexander and Andrew, Bermuda owes you and your father and his beloved wife, Mary Jean, a debt of immense gratitude. And I hope that the whole House will join join me and the Premier indeed already in sending our respectful thanks for all that he has done for this island, and may he rest in peace. I agree with Colonel Birch. After we have such a long passing, it's hard to get these all in, given the time that's been spent absent from the House. But if I may also quickly mention the passing of Robert Richard Rance Jr., affectionately known by many Bermudians as Bobby. He died at the age of 77. He was a true character and a very successful Bermudian who flew the flag for our island, both home and abroad. And to his boys, Brooks and Peter and their families, my heartfelt condolences. And I would also like to offer condolences to the family of Anna Winona Summers, who died in her 87th year, and her funeral was this week, or last week rather, well, this week rather. She was a female leader in the world of Bermudian insurance in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. And there was certainly no glass ceiling for Anna at a time when there weren't a lot of women in the boardroom, indeed at the highest echelon and levels of the boardroom. And so to Anna's children, Zoe and David, and to her stepchildren, Greg and Jillian, heartfelt condolences, love and affection for your mother, Anna, who was always funny, always there with a smile, and always immensely kind privately. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Minister of Education, you have your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I certainly do want to be associated with the remarks for Senator Robinson, for young Mr. Edwards, and Mr. Green as well. Mr. Speaker, I would like condolences sent to constituents of mine who've suffered a double tragedy this year. Just we were here a few months ago announcing the death of Mr. Wilford Hudson. His wife has passed a few weeks ago since we've been here, and so just want to say congratulations. I mean condolences to the family, the Mary Victoria Road family, their son Wilford Jr. and their daughter Linda. Surely she will be a miss up there at Mary Victoria Road. And I associate MP Swan with those comments. Mr. Speaker, and I will take the liberty of associating the entire House for condolences sent to the family of Canon James Francis. Mr. Speaker, there was a special relationship with myself with Canon. Canon was a member of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And it was always amazing. No matter when I saw him, he was happy to greet me. He was happy to talk fraternal business. He has reached, Canon Francis reached a milestone that not many persons who joined this organization reach, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, he celebrated 70 years as a member of this organization in March of earlier this year. That made him one of the few members that reach that milestone when you really think about it. He crossed that Xi chapter on March 30th, 1954, Mr. Speaker. And so I know his homegoing service will be on Tuesday, and I certainly will be there to pay my final respects to my dear brother, Canon Francis. Mr. Speaker, on a lighter note, something that reminds me of how old I'm getting, I want to send a congratulations to my nephew, who has, in the birth of his daughter, Demi, who was born between him and his partner, Denise. Danae Zay. And so I just want to say congratulations to them. Teasing my brother has become a grandfather, but more they tease me becoming a great uncle now. And it's something, perhaps one day I will aspire to actually witness that. But congratulations to them and Mr. Speaker. And again, just reflecting on Senator Robinson's, I think it was Mr. Pearman, MP Pearman, that said the service yesterday was absolutely beautiful. It was just breathtaking to listen to the singing, to listen to the speeches and everything. And it's very heartwarming to see her sent off in such a joyous occasion.
Thank you,
Mr.
Minister. Mr. Whip. Mr. Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to be associated with the condolences sent on behalf of Mr. Quentin Bean. His family, mother and aunt, live in my constituency, and Mr. Bean himself would always be in the constituency, so he was always free with his advice to me. So certainly I associate with that. I also want to associate with the passing of Senator Leslie Robinson, who is a good friend of my children, both Craig and Tina, and Nikisha, I'm sorry. So I do associate with that. There's a saying, Mr. Speaker, that it's better late than never. There's a constituent of mine, a young lady who celebrated a birthday, and I don't normally do the celebration of birthdays in my constituency on the floor, but we were out at the time. Young lady, Miss Rose Riley, she reached the ripe age of 95, and I did promise her that I would send congratulations via this medium. So thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Whip. MP Fogo. You have your 2
Thank
minutes.
you. I was going to stand up before the premier, but I knew he was going to do Leslie, and I thought he should have that honor. Yes. Mr. Speaker, I just want to be associated with the remarks for our departed senator. I would like to say condolences to Mr. Damian Simmons, who was the son of Dawn Simmons and Phil Parent-Chief, who tragically lost his life in Bailey's Bay just a week or so ago, only in his 50s. And it still stuns us in terms of how that accident even took place. But I just want the House to recognize the Simmons Parent-Chief family in the loss of their son. Mr. Corey Steed from St. George's in his early 50s. I will associate Kim Swan and I will associate Renee Ming, Member Ming. He lost his life to cancer at a very young age. Ms. Quillette Aiken, who is the great aunt of Renee Ming. I will associate Mr. Kim Swan because she was a long time, at one time, she lived in the Wellington area. Mrs. Anita Fox in her 89th year, she was buried yesterday, and I attended her funeral, so I couldn't attend the senators. She made her home in St. George's, but came from the Southampton area. So I was surrounded by people from Southampton, but I had the honor to speak at her funeral. A very strong, independent woman, and who will be a great loss. I'd like to associate Kim Swan. She leaves her one and only son, Mr. Alan Fox. So condolences to him and his family. For those who don't know, she's associated with the Sternum family, a name that's recognized in that area. And lastly, but not least, I would like congratulations to go out to Mrs. Fabler from St. George's, who celebrated her 100th birthday on November 1st. The premier, Member Swan and Member Ming did get to attend, but unfortunately, though invited, I couldn't attend because I had to go somewhere else. And so I just want the House to recognize Mrs. Fabler in her 100th year, and I do hope that a letter will be sent to her. She has all of her faculties, and we can clearly call her a matriarch of the East, being 100 years old. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yep. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like the House to send condolences out to the family of Miss Helen Marie Ferbert, the wife of Pastor Dean Ferbert from Gospel Hall in Hamilton Parish. Miss Ferbert was a very nice person, and her children, her 3 children, are just as nice as her, and her husband is very nice. Also, to the family of Sergeant Richard Warner, the brother of Esme Williams. And I'd like to associate Kim Swan and the Premier, and me, Diallo Robin, as he says. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Warner was a decorated Marine in the U.S. Forces, Bermudian, and he leaves to mourn his wife and 2 daughters and grandchildren. He will certainly be sorely missed by his family. Thank you, Mr. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. Also, I'd like to be associated with the condolences to Mr. Green, Dimitri Edwards, Dora Hollis, and Canon Francis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy Premier.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Certainly want to be associated with the condolences to the Arruda family and the Edwards family. Perhaps what's most unsettling about having to give these remarks is that these were the tragedies were around young people who parents do not want to be burying their children. And that's perhaps what's most unsettling about having to be associated with those particular condolences. I know the Arruda family very well, as been mentioned, but also the Edwards family are my constituents. So his mother Tanisha, and the rest of the family are a family of the village, the North Village. So, and what was comforting is that when one attended their residence to give condolences, they were surrounded by a lot of love and a lot of good people. So that was very comforting to see. But certainly the loss is disturbing for a community to be losing our young people. Certainly want to be associated with already given to the late senator. She was certainly a special member of our organization, and her loss will be felt for a while. I'd known Leslie since the late 80s, so when she entered the insurance industry, and even had come into acquaintance with her in Atlanta because we both were studying at the same time. So quite a loss to somebody who was just a wonderful person. Certainly also Canon Francis, a pillar of Devonshire, formerly the pastor for Christ Church Devonshire. Certainly something that the Devonshire community will certainly remember him fondly. And Mr. Quentin Bean, who also I knew from a very young child, I knew Mr. Bean very well, having at one point lived in Warwick myself. In my younger years, knew him very well. And certainly the 175th anniversary of the arrival of the Portuguese emigres was very moving, a life celebration to be a part of. I attended all of the events and was honored to, on behalf of the people of Bermuda, to welcome the president and his delegation, the president who I had met previously. So I wanted to ensure there was a friendly face to welcome them to our island, and certainly hope that such visits will become a normal fixture for not only Bermudians, but also Azorians as we build stronger ties with the Azores as well for years going forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Minister Weeks. I'm going to take this. Before you start, how many other statements do we have this morning? How many other members want to make comments in regard to? Okay. Premier, wait, before you do, I'm going to ask that the Premier take us to the lunch period right now. We'll come back. I was trying to get us all through condolences and congratulations before lunch so that we could have come back and started the reply. But it looks like there's quite a few hands going up. So I'm going to ask you, Premier, to do that. However, Premier, before you get on your feet, I'd just like to acknowledge in the gallery, in the chamber sitting here this morning, we have Minister Darrell. With Minister Darrell, we have two officials from the Caribbean Tourism Association. And I'm going to stumble over names, but it's Miss Regis Prosper and Miss Baval. Miss Baval. They're both here on a tourism related matters with the minister, and we'd just like to acknowledge your presence here and trust that your time in Bermuda will be well spent and you'll go back with very warm feelings from being here in Bermuda. Thank you. Premier?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that this honorable House do now adjourn until 2 p.m. for lunch.
Any objections? There are none. The House now stands adjourned until 2 p.m.